Death Battle Season 8 is now finished. I now have to wait another 2 months for the next season to begin. So, why not we take this time to look back on the previous season to see how well it ended up. Sorry this took so long. I've just been too lazy to make videos, but I gotta get this one out, so yeah. I really tried looking for negatives in this one. Okay, so looking back on this was a fantastic episode. The voice acting is really good, although Mickey's Ultima Scream at the end was just really funny. The action was stellar. There's honestly not much I can say about this. This episode's just really, really good. I gave it, I think, a 7 out of 10 when I first reviewed this, and honestly, I think that might just be because of my bias against Kingdom Hearts. I'm not really a fan of the series, never actually liked it. But looking back with a more fair, critical view, this episode's a 10, man. There's no sugarcoating. This is a perfect episode. Aside from a few bits, but other than that, 10 out of 10. That ending as well was just stellar. Well, with an absolutely positive start to this, where else can we go? Didn't get much better, but it wasn't bad. This episode was one my bias was definitely leaning towards. For those who don't know, I do like Sonic the Hedgehog. The franchise is great, and I do like Shadow. He's not my favorite character, that honor belongs to Knuckles, but he's still a really cool character that I like. So, if you can't tell, this episode was one my bias was kind of high for. And honestly, I feel like I didn't really do it justice. In my original review, I did admit that there were some issues, but I kept treating this like this was better than the episode prior, which I don't think it is now. It's still a good episode. It's probably an 8 because of my biases. If I wasn't biased, it'd probably be a 7, but it's an 8 for me. I do like this episode. The track, while I do think it should have been more like Live and Learn and Don't Lose Your Way, it's still pretty good. And the sprite work is really good as well. I just love the sprite work in this episode. Though there are parts where it does look weird, and same with the hand-drawn stuff, but it's, all in all, still a pretty good episode. One I see myself returning to incredibly often. So, with a really good episode and a not bad, but a good episode that came before, I'm just stumbling. What I meant to say is, since we have a really good episode and an episode that isn't as good as that one, but still really good, where else can we go from here? I guess the only way we can know is to look at the next episode. You'd figure with this being the first Marvel vs. DC episode of the Legacy season, it'd be a lot better. Lex vs. Doom is boring. The only reason it has a 4 is because, 1, I love the track, Apex of Doom is an absolute banger, and 2, the foot dive moment is the best part of this entire fight, and that's what gives it that 2 extra points. Other than that, this episode is boring. It does have a few good things, like some of the hand-drawn stuff is nice, I guess, and the death is pretty cool. Other than that, nothing. No reaction whatsoever. Well, that was disappointing. Hopefully the next episode can be much better. Yeah, this episode is an absolute banger. This was, for a time, my favorite Season 8 episode. And I can see why. I love the hand-to-hand fighting in this, and I love just the banter between these two. I love how Heihachi never speaks a word of English. Can't say the same for Geese's voice, though. I mean, he is doing his best English impression, but it just doesn't sound like him. I mean, I guess it does kind of capture that whole obsession with Japanese culture or whatever. Was it Chinese or Japanese? I think it was Japanese, yeah. But other than that, this episode's great. It has a great death. The fighting is great. Just the characters just being themselves is amazing. And the track, oh my god, Kings of Iron is one of the best tracks of this season. I love it so much. Well, this has just restored my hope for the rest of the season. Let's see where we get taken now. I really gotta stop jinxing myself. This episode is basic. Like, not as much as Lex vs. Doom. This does have some pretty cool moments, like the swinging bit with Mikasa and Blake, and, you know, the scene, just fighting in the air, and the track is just phenomenal. Probably one of the best tracks in the entire show. And the line about Blake having 2 sets of ears, meaning four times the hearing, I ironically like that line. It is so dumb and funny that I like it. That's all I can say. The low frame rate doesn't help this episode at all, and the death is lame, if not a bit funny. Oh, and Blake being surprisingly happy after just killing a person, yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever. Hell, she lost an arm. Oh, that reminds me, the silhouette scene is also really good. There you go, that's just... oh boy, hopefully the next episode is just way better. Unless I jinxed myself again. I gotta stop doing that. Oh boy, where to begin with this episode? I love it! Plain and simple, this episode is fantastic. The voice acting is amazing, especially on Poe's end, and I love the choreography. The idea of Iron Fist being more of a skilled fighter while Poe just adapts to his environment really does shine brightly here. And although I do find it a bit weird that while they're sparring, most of Danny's hits cause Poe to grunt in pain, which sort of makes no sense, but once they stop holding back, oh my god, it's amazing. The track as well is good, but not to listen to. There are a few bits that you can listen to, like the scene, the part with the Kung Fu Panda bit, but other than that, you can't really listen to the track on its own. It's got too many pauses to make it seem like it's more part of this, more part of the animation than anything else. Also, the name is hilarious. I love it. The death is also a bit boring. It's a basic disintegration death. We've gotten a lot of these this season, but yeah, it's just a bit meh. But the Spirit Realm battle is definitely the creme de la creme of this. Did I use that right? I think I used that right. If I used it wrong, just tell me. But that's definitely the best. The Spirit World fight is definitely the best part of this episode. The scene where they just summon their dragons, it's just... oh, I love it so much. This is coming from a fan of both Kung Fu Panda and a fan of Iron Fist. I just love this episode. It's not perfect, does have its flaws, but... man, I just love it. Easy 9 out of 10. Just perfect episode. Surprisingly, an episode with 2 characters, or more accurately, 1 character I don't really care about, and 1 character I actively dislike, is actually really good, and one I really enjoy. It's not perfect. There are a few bits of jank, and, well, the voice acting can be a bit awkward sometimes. Other than that, this is great. The transformation for both Star and Steven into their super forms is really good, as well as a lot of the sound effects. I do like the volleyball sound effects when Steven surrounds his hands in his bubble shield and just starts wailing on Star. It sounds awesome. But then they ironically stop and then they start again. So, it's kind of weird. The death is another disintegration death, which is just so overused at this point that I'm honestly glad we started to get different deaths. For the most part. You'll see when we get to the next few episodes. Overall, good episode, one I return to often, and one I enjoy often. Oh, the track also is a banger. I love Stars of the Universe, especially the guitar solo. That is just perfect. Not much else I can say on this, just that's perfect. Alright, I'm gonna start off negative with this episode. The effects aren't good. Cloud's hair isn't good. Cloud leaving the fusion sword in the church isn't good. The track sounds too much like a Final Fantasy track, not enough like a Legend of Zelda track. Okay, that's all the complaints. Time to start gushing about this episode. Oh man, this episode is just really good. Yeah, like I mentioned, the effects are bad, but that doesn't really hinder my enjoyment of this episode. It really does just feel really cool to watch these characters sword fight. The original wasn't too good with the sword fighting, in my opinion at least. That's mostly just because it was their first 3D episode, and I understand that. I still don't like it though, so you can stop. But this episode really felt like a remaster of the original. It really felt like it took what worked in the original and made it better in this one. The sword fighting, it's just really cool. You get to see Link's more style, or more like normal way of sword fighting, because his sword is normal, but then you see Cloud just like his more sluggish, since his sword is literally the size of a frickin' motorcycle. Also, love the bit where Link gets disarmed and Cloud just starts wailing on him. It's like that scene in the original, but it's made better with the more fluid and dynamic movement. It's just so good. And each of the Links having a different personality with the Four Swords Link is just a cute little detail, and I love it. And the transformation from Link to Fierce Deity Link is just second best transformation in the entire series, beaten only by Ganon's transformation, or Ganondorf's transformation to Ganon in Ganondorf vs. Dracula. Man, that episode was really good. I loved that episode. And the death was really good. It wasn't a disintegration death, though I do find it a bit weird how Link's body disappeared and then just fell to the ground. I can look past that. This episode was good. Oh, and I forgot, the analysis wasn't really good, so 8 out of 10. This episode is much like Doctor Strange vs. Dr. Fate, or Thanos vs. Darkseid. It has so much potential, but it didn't use it. Unlike those episodes, though, this one is good! Alright, the sprite work for the Hellbat and the Godbuster are fantastic. Especially the Hellbat. Oh, that neck-cracking scene is just... And the track is also really good. Speaking as someone who really likes bands like AC/DC, I love it. I love it. There are a few bits I don't like the parts where it sounds more like Batman and less like Iron Man, but then again, that's just my bias because, well, I like tracks like this. And also the line about Superman and dusting away and not feeling so good. Yeah, that's just cringy. Much like the fight like the devil line in Chaos Unraveled, the Shadow versus Ryuko track. Oh, that's a criticism I didn't bring up. But yeah. Overall, this episode's good. There are a few bits I was disappointed by. The fact that it didn't use a lot of their... Like, Tony got to do a lot of things. Bruce did not. He only got the Hellbat, some Batarangs, and... I feel like Batman doesn't deserve that. It's Batman! There's so much you can use, but you didn't use it, and now this episode is a permanent 7 out of 10. How dare you? Poor Batman, I'm sorry. Alright, next episode. Where do I begin with this episode? Might as well start with the negatives. Goku Black's analysis sucks. That's it. This episode is legitimately just dumb fun, and I love it to pieces. Oh my god. This episode really captures what I wanted from an episode from a matchup I didn't actually like. I don't like this matchup. I feel like it's too much of a stomp for one side. But it's still so much fun, and I love it. I love this episode so much. Goku Black obviously steals the show. Reverse Flash obviously steals the show, but Goku Black isn't left in the dust. He gets his cool moments. The moment where he just grabs Thawne by the neck and just starts talking about how good he looks in the color pink is just... I love it. And Reverse Flash just being a total dick is just hilarious and will never not be funny to me. The sprite work is also really good. It goes for that whole Ben 10 versus Green Lantern, Archie Sonic versus Wally West kind of thing. And it really works for this episode. Most importantly, though, it captures the speed of Reverse Flash so well as the incredible power of Goku Black. That's one criticism I had, or that's like one of the many criticisms I had for Archie Sonic versus Wally West. For those who don't know, I'm not really a fan of that episode. Not because of my bias Sonic. I don't like Archie Sonic. I just don't like this episode. But, yeah, this episode is fantastic. If it wasn't for for Goku Black's analysis, it would have been a 10, but unfortunately, the one bit drags it down to a 9. It's still a great episode, and one I revisit so often. I will never not love this episode. Ooh boy. Can't wait to see the next one. This was the episode I was most hyped for this season. How did it fare? There is just a lot of problems with this episode. There are a lot of good stuff too, but I'm going to start with the negatives first because I want to end off this one with a positive one. With a positive thing. Whatever, I don't care anymore. For starters, I feel like this episode is too focused on Boomstick's dad. It was funny at first, not funny anymore. You killed the joke back in Season 7. You killed the joke back when you started overusing it. It's no longer funny, and we don't care about Boomstick's dad. That sounds mean, actually. I'm sorry about that. But it's true. We don't care about Boomstick's dad. I mean, yeah, it was nice that we got confirmation that it was Sarge, but I really don't want to hear about Boomstick's dad in an episode about Macho Man Randy Savage versus the Kool-Aid Man. They could have made the whole Boomstick's dad arc a whole bonus episode or something with a matchup that very little people care about, but they had to do with their big 150, and I understand why. I just feel like in return we lost something that could have been the best episode this season, even better than the finale, and we'll get to that. So, alright, that's basically all the negatives. Oh wait, no, I'm not done with the negatives yet. The analysis bits in the middle of the fight... I'm sorry, I'm not a fan. I know it's clever, but I just rather see the two fighting instead of the host discussing about what they can do. I'd rather see what they can do, and not hear about what they can do. If that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but I don't really care anymore. Alright, now on to the positives. I love the animation for most of the bits we see. And the voice acting is also really good. As someone who likes both Macho Man Randy Savage and the Kool-Aid Man, just hearing their voices is just, it's the best thing ever. I also like the stop motion bit. It's probably my favorite bit in the entire episode. And I now want to see a full episode that's actually stop motion. Maybe if we eventually get Lloyd Garmadon versus Avatar Aang, that could be a stop motion episode, but I'll just have to keep wishing. Yeah, other than that, that's about it. I do like their whole little constellation thing at the end, and I do feel like they lowballed the characters a bit too much, but other than that, I like this episode. Not as much as Reverse Flash versus Goku Black, or hell, not as much as Steven versus Star, but I still enjoyed this episode. Really hope this doesn't bring any sort of connotations for future episodes. I hope the Boomstick Dad joke is now dead. 6 feet underground where it belongs. Because I don't want to hear about Boomstick's dad anymore. Oh man, this episode was good. But I'm going to start out with the negatives first. Dio had the star birthmark on the back of his neck in one shot, but then he didn't have it in another shot. Inconsistency, that is horrible. And that is the only gripe I have with this episode. Oh my god, this episode is just so fast-paced and just fluid, and I love it so much. This is what I wanted from John Talbane versus Saberwolf. This is what I wanted, and this is what I got, and I love it. For starters, the animation is really good. They really go for this, they really try and sell Alucard as this whole Eldritch abomination kind of thing, and it works so well. Hell, they had him do stuff that I don't even think he can do, or I don't think he ever did, but it's possible that he can do it. Like, I've never seen him do the whole, like, sprouting multiple arms thing and then just walking around on those, or growing a giant arm to punch with, or a lot of things, but I honestly don't care because I just had so much fun watching this. The voice acting was phenomenal. Of course, Takahata 101 does a phenomenal job as Alucard, as per usual, and I think it was Tom Schultz. Is that how you say his name? I'm terrible with names. Who did Dio. I think he also did the Kool-Aid Man, so... But he did a fantastic job as Dio. He really sold that cocky, arrogant bastard that he is, and I love it. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. The analysis was good, the track was amazing, the fight was amazing, the conclusion was really good, and I know a lot of Alucard fans are going to be salty that he lost, but that's how Ben 10 fans felt. Oh my god. Anyway, moving on. Man, this episode sucks. I gave it a 5 out of 10 when I first reviewed this, and I am immediately regretting doing that. There are a few cool bits, like Shao Kahn still fighting while there's a hole punctured in his chest, even though that hole is like a perfect circle. And Akuma, or Oni, doing the whole ranging demon Satsui no Hado thing. That was cool. This episode just blows, though. There's just a lot of jank. The X-rays are bad. They literally look like PNGs. They are literally PNGs. And the death is hilariously bad. Oh, man. There's just nothing here that is worth talking about. It just sucks. Oh, and they use the Mortal Kombat 11 Shao Kahn model, which is just the worst. So, yeah. It's ugly, and I don't like it. I did like the cutaway gags, however. For both. They were actually pretty funny. So, to me at least, but man, these episodes suck. This episode sucked. Hello, yes, only person who is excited for Korra vs. Storm here. I do like this episode, though. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still a good episode. It's got one of my favorite X-Men in it, and I do like Korra, despite what other people say. I think she's a cool character. So, starting off with the negatives, I guess the beginning is kind of slow. Also, it does kind of look a bit weird when Storm arrives. It looks like she's, like, only a few feet off the ground, when in reality she should probably be, like, a lot higher than that. But it just looks weird. And also, Storm doesn't really get to do a lot. Korra does a lot. She gets to earthbend, metal bend, water bend, fire bend, air bend, all that stuff. Storm only uses, like, wind and lightning, and that's it. I did also like the references to the other characters, and even Nemesis Bloodreich himself in an episode of Death Battle. That is something that is going down in the history books. That was a freaking hilarious reference. I love it. Nemesis, if you're watching this, I love your content. Please, if you want a collab, hit me up. My Twitter's linked in the description. Follow me on Twitter, by the way. Anyway, time for the positives. The effects for the bending, like for Korra's bending, are really good. The action is also really good. And the bit about the cabbages is hilarious because now I'm just reminded that he'll never be safe no matter where he goes. He can be in the spirit realm, in the regular realm. No matter where he goes, his cabbages will never be safe. It's a never-ending purgatory. And I love it. Oh man, and the death was stellar. The whole... that was... Honestly, I think... This is going to be a bit of a hot take here. But I think that was the third best death in the series, in the season. Third best death. First was definitely Goku Black's. Second, in my opinion, was Alucard's. And third was Korra's. They were just so good, and I love it. I love all of them. They're so brutal and violent, and it's just so cool. Whew. Anyway, time for the episode that everyone was excited for. Gonna have to get through this one quickly because I have to go to bed soon because it's a school night. This episode is good. The beginning is boring. The rest of it's really good. The analysis is good. The cutaway gag for Madara's analysis was really good. And I just love this episode. I don't really have a connection to these characters, and I do think it's wrong, but that, like I said, that doesn't really sway my personal preference sometimes. So, yeah. This episode's good, even though I think it's wrong, so there we go. 8 out of 10. Would recommend. Oh, and Hollow Dreams is an absolute banger of a track. Definitely recommend it. I know this is going to seem like a bit of a cop-out, but if you want to see my full opinion on Saitama vs. Popeye, check the link in the description. My full review will be down there. I don't think I have enough time for this. So, yeah. That's about it. All you need to know is that this is my new favorite finale of the entire series. Most of the all of the hand-drawn stuff is really good, and the idea to change the animation styles in the entire through the fight was amazing. I'm glad Saitama finally got his challenge, and I'm glad to see Popeye in Death Battle. Thank you, and good night, everybody.
And that was my season 8 retrospective. I know it was short, but I'm dealing with some personal issues right now and I wanted to get this video out so you all could watch it. So what rating would I get for season 8? Well, I would have to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It is definitely one of the best seasons we've gotten in recent years, much better than season 7 in my opinion. But there are a few things holding it back from a 9 or even a 10. As for the next time, we got a glimpse of some of the new fighters. Those fighters are Tanjiro, Scarlet Witch, Tetsuo, Boba Fett, Vegeta and Jinx. Tanjiro will most likely fight Jonathan Joestar, Scarlet Witch is fighting Zatanna, Tetsuo will most likely fight Magneto, Boba Fett will probably fight the Predator, Vegeta vs Thor is happening and Jinx will probably fight Harley Quinn. Overall, I am excited for next season. Thank you all for watching and here's to another decade of death battle.